Today we're going to take a look at how to create a basic level bar in the style of Skyrim. So whenever you kill an enemy, your level bar goes up. Obviously your levels go up as you get enough experience to gain levels. And then supposing that you have skills and perks in your game, then if you use those skills you also get perks. We will start off in a new Unity project here. So it's an empty scene. I'm in Unity 2019.3.9. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up a reference picture here to work off of. This is kind of what we're going for. We're going for a Skyrim-like skill set. What we want to do is have like a set of skill sets. Okay, so for example, we got destruction, restoration, smithing, etc. Right, so we can upgrade each one of those, and each one of those has its own experience bar, but then we've also got our own level experience bar. So as we level up in the skill sets, we level up in our general level, and we gain perks to increase. All right. So let's leave that off to the side, and we'll get started on this project. We'll start with just basic, very basic UI and very basic scripting. Let's create the basics of our UI. We're going to create a new canvas. We're going to make sure to set our canvas to go from constant pixel size. We're going to set that on scale with screen size, and we'll set that to full HD. Alright, and that's a good reference point to start from. Okay, we'll zoom out, and then we'll try to think about these elements of the UI part by part. Okay, so I'm creating a background panel. What I'm actually going to do with this, I'm going to go ahead and copy and save this image, and I'm just going to bring it into my project so that I can use it as a reference. And that way this will be a lot easier to do. Alright, so you need to make sure to set this to Sprite 2D UI, and then we'll go ahead and put that into the source image of the panel, and we'll up the alpha on that. Okay, so now we know what we need to at least where things go here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get that top level bar going. Alright, so I'm going to have a fill bar here. Okay, now we could have a background where you see the background thing with the arrows. We would have this in the background, so we have an image there, and then as a child of that we would have another image which would be a fill image. Okay, now I like to set my anchors, and that'll make sure that my UI pieces always go into that part of the screen, and then they scale with the screen size. So if I move, for example, from full HD to 2K or whatever, you can see that that bar actually moves with it. Alright, so it scales based on where those anchors are. Alright, so I'm going to child this. I'm going to make this stretch, and I'll put this to 0, 0, 0, so it's right on top of the background image. Alright, so I've gone ahead and created three basic assets. I've created the fill bar for the main level. I've created this area for the perks to increase, and then I've got the level and the level number here. So let's go ahead and remove, well, I'll just put it on 0 alpha so you can see that. So we've got these three things, and with this I think that we can do a little bit of programming so that we can see these things change and adjust to what our character's stats are going to be. I'm going to create a new folder called scripts, and I'm going to create a couple of scripts here. So I've got a skill user. We don't need to have skills yet, but we do want to have a script for the UI. So we'll just call this skill UI. Alright, and we're going to go ahead and put the skill UI onto the panel, and we're going to change the name of the panel to skill panel. Okay, now what we want to do in skill UI is go ahead and get access to that level, That is the number level that we're at. So for example, you see here that we're at level 44. We're going to want access to the image here for the fill bar, and then we'll want access to this text that gives us the number of perks that we can increase. Okay, so in order to get access to image, we will need Unity Engine UI namespace, and then I always bring in TextMeshPro because I think it's the best way to do text. So I'm going to bring in TextMeshPro. You could do this with the regular Unity text. Okay, it's the same thing. You've got the same access properties on TextMeshPro, so it's not like a huge difference, except when you actually go in to use it. I think there's a huge difference in the way that it scales and the way that it looks, especially when you're zoomed in on it. Okay, so we'll have the level text. And I'm going to go ahead and give us access to that in the inspector. We will have the perks to increase. Then we're going to need that image for the level. Okay, with that we should be able to see we'll be able to do some good functionality with these things. Okay. Let's go back into our skill user. Okay, so we'll get access to him. We're gonna go ahead and give him some basic properties, basic variables. All right, so we'll say that his base level, say we start off at 0. We'll talk about experience for next level and progress towards next level. And then we'll give public access to the progress toward next level over XP to next level. So XP to next level is saying, okay, from 0 to 1, you have to get 150 XP, right? And then our progress obviously is, maybe we killed a monster and get 10 XP. That's, our progress towards the next level. So we want to get a percentage of that so that we can show that progress on the fill bar, okay? And that'll be a 0 to 1 fill. Okay, so we need to get this. All we need to do is give public access, and we'll say progress. We're going to use the access expression, and we'll say XP to next level. Oops. We're going to say progress to next level over XP to next level. Alright, and that should give us a 0 to 1 property. Okay. We'll also want access to our current level. Actually, this really is current level, so we'll just call it that, current level. And then we'll have a public access to current level. Okay, that looks good. And say that every time that you increase skill, you're getting a perk. Okay. Right now, I mean, we don't have any perks. We don't have any skills. So we're just going to say we're just going to give access in the inspector, and then we can just change this in the inspector, and we'll see it work. Okay. So we'll say for now the perks are 0, and you're going to see us use a built-in Unity callback in order to debug this, to test it. All right. So I'm going to bring in the onValidate callback. Okay. So this, whenever we change something, okay. So whenever a value is changed in the inspector, or whenever we call onDestroy, onDisable, onEnable, onValidate is called. Okay, so when you exit play mode, onValidate is called, and then if you change something while you're in play mode, onValidate is called. So let's first get an event. Okay, so we're going to say public event delegate void onChange skill. Let's just do this. All right, and we'll give current level. This is a placeholder, so we're not gonna do it like this later on. We'll say flow progress. Alright, so this isn't ideal because you wouldn't be giving this kind of information typically. typically you'd want to hide this and or have more specific events. Okay, so for example, on level up, on gain perk, on XP change. This isn't the best example, but it'll work for what we want to do just to debug. Okay, so we're going to call this on change skill. We'll make sure that it's not null, and then we'll invoke it, and we'll pass in the current level. We'll pass in the perks, and we'll pass in our progress to next level. Alrighty. So where do we get this? We're going to do this in on here. So we'll have a private void update UI. We're going to pass in all those elements that we had before the current level. Let's just call it level, perks, and progress. Okay, and that's a float. Okie dokie. So we're going to update our level text, obviously, with the new level. We're going to bring in our perks. And we will change our level progress image fill. Okay, so we'll just put that as progress. Okay, so we'll make sure that this works. We can get a reference to our skill user. And this makes sense because if we didn't have a skill user, we would have no need for skill UI. Okay, so that's a reference or a dependency that you can get away with. Alright, so we'll call this the user and we'll call it null. Alright, so we'll set that in the inspector. So if we have a user, then we will call that user.onChangeSkill and pass it the update UI. So every time that the player changes his skill, then we'll update the UI to reflect those changes. Alright. So let's go ahead and take all this out just to see how simple this is. I should have mentioned this the first thing off. This font is called Futura Condensed Medium. Okay, so you can get that for free. I got it here. Oops. At fontsgeek.com. Okay, so fonts Futura Condensed Medium. Alright. Alright. Let's get back into the inspector. We're going to go ahead and plug in our user. Should probably create a user. We'll call this guy player. Doesn't really matter. You don't need this stuff right now. Just like to set it up just in case. So we'll say that his current level is 3. He's got 1 perk to increase. His XP toward next level is 150. And then his progress towards that, he's at 10% there. Alright. Now that's not going to show up in this first update. Alright, so we can, it might, alright, it might, but it probably won't, unless they do on validate when we enter play mode. Okay, so our user is the player, our level text is the level text, perks to increase, and we've got our level fill here. Okay, let's go ahead and press play and see if anything changes. No. Alright, so we'll go ahead and change the player now, and we'll see that changes our perks, our UI, sorry. So we'll change perks, right? So we can see that it immediately changes when we change it in the inspector. We've changed the level. Obviously I messed up on the levels. Okay, so maybe I didn't put the fill properly. I'm not really sure what I did wrong here. It's because I didn't put the image type as fill. Okay, so right, okay, so it's because it was ugly. Alright, I didn't want to use that because it was ugly. Alright, so we'll see that changes when we go back in here. So let's change it. Okay, so he's 10% there. You can see that reflected. We'll say that he goes to 50%. Good. All right, so let's just increase that. It looks, I mean, it looks horrible, but it works. Okay, so I've changed things a little bit. You can see here in the skill user that I've added these new events like I was talking about before. So normally each of these things is only done at certain times, so it's not imperative to change. I mean, you don't have to call the level text or the perks to increase text or the level progress image every single time that one thing happens. Okay, so for example, if we kill an enemy, we get some XP, but we don't necessarily level up or gain a perk, right? So in that case, we would only call on change XP. However, if we have enough progress to get to the next level, then we're going to level up, and then when we level up, we'll keep that rollover XP, and then we'll increase our level, and then we'll call the on level up event so that we can change the UI for the level. The same thing goes for perks. So if we use a skill, and this is a really basic example of using skills, this is not how we're going to continue. We're not going to use an enum as this series progresses, but just for keeping things basic, if we are using destruction, then we're going to level up destruction. All right, regardless of anything else, if we use destruction, we level it up every single time. So we call on perk increase, and we'll have another perk to add to our player. So now on the skill UI, we still need to listen for those actions, for those events. Okay, so I'm going to say on change XP, right, and I'll have, let's say, update XP or update progress bar. So you can see that this is a lot more streamlined than it was before, because we're not touching every single thing in the UI. All right, so we'll call that update progress bar. Okay, so when we level up, we'll call the update level method. Okay, so we'll see now, I've added these buttons in so that when we click them, we get some XP, and then if we click kill rat with fire, then we get an increase in the destruction perk. All right, so let's go ahead and add an on-click event for each of these. This is not how I would do this normally, but for testing, for prototyping this kind of stuff, we'll be fine. So we have this method now on the player, excuse me. We have this method now on the player called kill enemy, right? Oh no, we can't use it. Okay, so ideally we could use it. The problem is that we have the enum attached to it. So let's just make sure. Alright, I'm in denial. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take this out. And then we'll, yeah, you can, okay, so you can only have, alright, let's try it like this. We're going to add another one where it's kill enemy with fire. Alright, and I don't like doing things like this, but to test it out, it'll work. So kill enemy with fire, we'll get the XP, and then we'll assume that we increase our perk in destruction. Alright, so we're doing the same exact thing. We're still calling kill enemy, alright, but we're taking away this skill. And actually, we don't even need this dirty enum. Okay, so we're just going to call kill enemy with that XP, and then we'll say perk, increase perks, and do that. Alright, so that'll work now. Okay, so let's do it. Let's call that kill enemy here, and then kill enemy with fire on that last one. And the XP for that we'll say is 10. 10 for killing a rat, 50 for killing a bandit, and 1,000 for killing a dragon. Alright, so there's something I forgot to do, and that is whenever we level up, we want to increase the XP to next level. So we'll just do it the quick and dirty way. XP to next level plus equals, let's say, 100 times current level. Okay, so that should work. Take a look. Now again, this won't update yet. Alright, so we'll kill a rat. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and change the player because we still have that on skill change. So I'm going to say our current level is 1. Alright, so now we're good. We'll say our perks are 0. So we'll kill something. We're killing this rat with fire. We've got all these perks now. Now we're going to kill the dragon. We're leveling up pretty quickly. We're killing all these bandits. We're getting this XP, and we level up. Okay, so if we kill dragons, obviously we get a lot more XP. But as you see, the XP gets higher with each level that we go to. So this, I mean, it's a pretty decent system for putting it together in 20 minutes. And we'll expand on this as this series progresses. We'll start to get those other skill sets that you saw, destruction and smithing, all that other stuff we'll get into. Okay. Real quickly, we're going to fix this. We don't want to start with the level 44. We don't want the UI to start uninitialized. So what we're going to do is go into skill user. We're going to implement the start method, and we'll call on change skill immediately. Okay, so what that's going to do is pass in the current level, the perks, and the progress towards the next level to the UI, supposing that the UI is initialized before the skill user. So what I mean is, if we do this in start, it's possible that on the main thread, the start method or the start callback will be called later. Before the start method on the skill user. So what we'll do is go ahead and throw this in awake. Alright, so we'll see that this changes to 1, and then the perks to increase changes to 3, and that's perfect.